You have a brother in the 2nd Battalion.
Yes, sir. Is he alive?
And with your help, I'd like to keep it that way. But they're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you don't, we will lose 1,600 men. Your brother among them.
My personal connection is that my grandfather told me the stories when I was a child, and he fought in the war between 1916 and 1918, and he was 17, and they were shocking stories. They were very particularly notable for not being about heroism and bravery, but being more about how lucky he was to be alive, and luck and chance and coincidence.
Yeah, so Sam called me up one day and he said, I have this idea, I want to co-write it with you. It's set in the First World War, are you free? And obviously Sam Mendes, so you're free. And he has told me a little bit about his grandfather. He said he has this one image, it's a messenger carrying a letter through no man's land, and that was the kernel of the whole idea. And we discussed it a little bit further. I kind of probed a bit more and found out how personal it was, and then he said, okay, I'll meet you Tuesday. Oh, by the way, it's all going to be one shot. So I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was going to be an incredibly personal and relevant story for Sam, and that I knew that it was going to be really, really tricky to pull off as a challenge. And so when we sat down together, really what we spoke about was the journey these two boys could take, the Hindenburg Retreat, the sort of the historical framework of it, and then who the characters would be, who would take us on this journey, who would lead us, the audience, through it.
Yeah, well, I play the character of Lance Corporal Blake, who is a much younger soldier compared to Schofield. He hasn't been there very long, and he hasn't seen the realities of war as though Schofield has. But he's a good soldier, he's good with maps and navigation, and they both get sent on a seemingly impossible mission to deliver a message.
Yeah, as Dean says, I play Lance Corporal Schofield, who has been there a wee while longer. He's a little bit older, but he deals with things differently. I think that's where they differ, and where also they learn to kind of come together. Is that I think Schofield's kind of fears that if he lets go of holding on to himself, then he's going to unravel completely, and he won't be able to be in the place that he is. So his way of dealing with it is to kind of keep it all inside.
I wanted two young actors who the audience didn't have any preferably didn't have much prior relationship with. I wanted to feel they were two amongst 2 million, and in a funny way I wanted you to feel at the beginning of the movie they weren't particularly special, they were just two average soldiers, and for us to realise or begin to understand why they were special, if they were, during the course of the film. George MacKay is very quite old-fashioned, very internal, but very feels everything very deeply as Schofield, and slightly different class to Blake, who is chattier and younger and more vulnerable, less experienced in war, but on the surface a much more readable, warmer personality. And it's a combination of the two, the sort of, salt and pepper of the two that I wanted, this unlikely friendship between two people who in civilian life probably wouldn't have spent any time together. I always had the joke that for me, Schofield in the pub would be sitting by the fire with a book, and his glass of wine, with his dog at his feet, and that Blake would be the other end of the pub, on his fourth pint with his mates.
It was a privilege. It was absolutely wonderful. Like Sam is amazing, and he's led us through this kind of epic experience. And he's masterful. His understanding of storytelling and how and when you give information to kind of create a reaction, be it as actors or be it in the final piece of the film, is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Genius. Filmed this film using a method, one continuous take, and it really does allow a whole nother layer to the storytelling aspect. It adds a whole nother layer of being immersed in the story as an audience member. And as an actor, again, you're immersed in the story. We did takes lasting up to 9 minutes long sometimes, and as an actor, you can just become completely lost in the story and the character, and it's honestly a dream come true.
We've created an experience. We've created something that I think is designed to be seen on a big screen. and I hope people go and see it on a big screen. We've used all the tools available to you as a contemporary filmmaker to make it feel like something experiential, something immersive. And I don't just mean image, I mean sound and music and everything else. And you know, you don't ever want to be able to sum up your movie in a single phrase, otherwise you'd write, you know, it's not a delivery of a message as a film, or it's not a history lesson, it's not, you don't need to know anything about the First World War to enter this world and be taken on this ride. And I think perhaps if you come out feeling like you understand a little bit more about what these men went through, about what happens to human beings in war when they're stripped to their essence and stripped of social class and all the things that the world gives them, they just you know, right down to the bare bones of what it means to be a brother or a friend or want to go home. You know, hopefully it makes people think about those things as a universal truth rather than just, you know, war.
There is only one way this war ends. Last man standing.
What the hell are you doing, Lance Corporal? No! No! No!
If you fail, it will be a massacre. Good luck.